In trigonometric integrals, you'll have to memorize few formulas and apply them. So before we start, I want to introduce this PowerPoint, which hopefully will be in the description. And you'll have to memorize about 5 slides. So this one here, you know what I'm talking about later. But for now, you should know this slide, which talks about the integral of sine and cosine, the double angle identities, the integral of tan and secant, and finally these formulas, sine A times sine B, and so on. Alright, so let's start solving. So our first question here is cosine cubed. So we need to simplify as much as we can first before we integrate, because we cannot integrate cosine cubed now. So what I'm going to do is I'll split cosine cubed into cosine squared times cosine. And now I can simplify cosine squared. Cosine squared can be written as 1 minus sine squared. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a u, but instead of what? So if we take cosine as u, it's going to be negative sine, and dx will be 1 over negative sine, which will only complicate stuff. I need to cancel. So the u will help me cancel one of these, cosine or sine. So let's take sine now. Du will be cosine, and dx will be 1 over cosine. So when we write this, 1 minus u squared, it's going to help me cancel cosine, because it's going to be 1 over cosine here, and these can be cancelled. Great. Now we can integrate. So the integration of 1 is u. So u minus the integration of u squared is u cubed over 3. And we chose u to be sine, so it's going to be sine minus sine cubed over 3 plus c. And that's it. Alright, in this question, you have to know the formulas that I've just given you to simplify. So basically, we have sine squared x that is also equal to half 1 minus cosine 2x. So we're going to simplify here. Between 0 and pi over 2, it will be half 1 minus cosine 2x. Great. You can take half outside and start integrating. So 1 minus cosine 2x. So integration of 1 is simply x minus the integration of cosine is sine, right? However, there's a catch here. When we find the derivative of cosine 2x, at the end we multiply by 2, right? Because of the 2x here. But when we find the integral, we do the opposite. Whatever is inside, we divide by it. So 2 is divided by 2. Okay, it's between 0 and pi over 2, and just replace, and you're going to find the answer. Alright, so next question here. These type of questions where you have sine, cosine are a little long, but once you get the whole of it, it becomes really easy. So first I want to analyze this question. By analyze, I mean their powers. They are odd or even. So sine is odd, while cosine is even. Now let's go back to the formulas. We have 1, 2, 3 cases. First one is even, odd. Next one is odd, even. The last one is even, even. Okay, so I want to write this as a table. So start with even, odd, then odd, even, then even, even, just like the formulas that I've shown you. Now, circle the odd, because these ones are the ones that we're gonna split, first of all, and then we're gonna change them. You're gonna understand in a bit. While the even are the ones that we're gonna take as u. Okay, we're gonna substitute them as u. Alright, so let's apply this to the question that we have. So first of all, we are in the odd even. So we are here, odd even. Okay, so remember the first one is sine and the second one is cosine for all of them. So sine, cosine, sine, cosine. Okay? Okay, so as I said, the odd is the one that we're going to split and change. In this case, sine power 5 is the one that's odd. So first of all, split. By what I mean by split is that we're gonna make it first of all even. So sine power 5, sine power 4 times sine. This way I want it to be even. Okay. So one should be even and the second one take it out. So it can be sine power 6 times sine, anything. But the first one should be even and then times sine. Now I want to change sine power 4 to sine squared power the rest. So sine squared power 2 here in this case, because sine power 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, and then write back sine and cosine squared. Great. This is what I meant by split. Okay, so we're done by splitting. Now we change. What I mean by change is that sine squared here can be changed to 1 minus cosine squared, right? So times sine times cosine squared. Finally, I said the even will be substituted by u. So in this case, even is cosine, right? So u is equal to cosine. So let's do that. 1 minus u squared over 2 times sine times u squared. Now find du. Du is negative sine. So dx is equal to 1 over negative sine. So multiply this by 1 over negative sine. Okay, let's erase this here. Move this to the side. Okay, now we can cancel negative sine and sine here. And what's gonna be left is negative 1. So negative 1 times u squared here. You're gonna multiply them. So it's gonna be negative u squared. Okay, now let's expand. So 1 minus u squared squared is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared, which in this case is 1 squared minus 2 times 1 times u squared plus b squared, which is u power 4. Okay, and then times negative u squared. So negative u squared times 1 is negative u squared. Negative with negative 2u squared is positive 2u power 4. When we multiply, we add the powers. Okay, and same thing here, u power 4 times u squared, but it's negative. So negative u power 6. Great. Don't forget the integral here from the very beginning. Okay, great. We are on the edge now. So negative u squared, the integral is negative u power 3 over 3. And the integral of 2u power 4 is 2u power 5 over 5. And finally, u power 7 over 7. We chose u to be cosine, right? So it's going to be negative cosine cubed over 3 plus 2u 2 cosine power 5 over 5 minus cosine power 7 over 7. Don't forget the plus c. And that's it. All right, so next question, sine power 4. What I'm going to do first is simplify. So it's going to be sine squared power 2. Sine squared, if we change it to 1 minus cosine squared, it's not going to help me later because I want to find the integral and it's going to be really tough. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rules which says that sine squared is equal to half 1 minus cosine 2x. So what's going to happen is that half 1 minus cosine 2x and then the whole thing squared. Now distribute the squared to the half and to the inside. So it's going to be 1 over 4. Take it outside. Then 1 minus cosine 2x squared. So we can expand this. It's going to be 1 over 4 a squared, which is 1, minus 2ab, 2 times 1 times cosine x, plus b squared, which is cosine squared 2x. Now I want to integrate, but I cannot integrate this yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this as well. The rule says that cosine squared x is half 1 plus cosine 2x. So let me do this on the side. Cosine squared 2x will be changed to half 1 plus cosine 2x. You have to be careful that x here is equal to 2x. Okay, so what it's going to really be is that it's going to be cosine 2x. So it's going to be 4x. Cosine 4x. Okay, now distribute the half on 1 plus cosine 4x. It's going to be half plus cosine 4x over 2. Great. Now replace this with cosine squared here. So cosine squared will be half plus cosine 4x over 2. Great. Let me delete this. Okay, and now we can integrate. Okay, but before integrating, we can simplify here. 1.5. So it's going to be 3 over 2 minus 2 cosine 2x plus cosine 4x over 2. Okay, so integration of 3 over 2 will be 3 over 2x minus 2 cosine is sine, and don't forget whatever is inside we divide by it. So 2x divided by 2. Same thing with cosine 4x. It's going to be sine 4x divided 4 times 2 because of this 2. So now distribute the 4. So it's going to be 3 over 8x minus 2. We can cancel the 2 with 2 here. So it's going to be sine 2x over 4 plus 8 times 4, which is 32. And then plus c. And this is it. All right, next question. Before I continue though, I want to tell you about this slide that I was talking about. So sine x here can be anything, not just even. Okay, so I said even, odd, odd, even, but this can be anything. Okay, as long as this is odd, you can use this rule here. Here as well, cosine power y can be any, can be odd or even. As long as sine is odd, you can use this formula. While here, both of them should be even. Okay, now, okay, the first thing I will do is analyze the question and its powers. The power here is even, and the power in secant power 4 is also even. Now let's check the rules. We have two cases. This one can be any, odd or even, and secant power 2y is always even. Tan 2x plus 1 is odd, while y is also any. Okay, so in our case, which is both even, right? It should be the first one, because the second one has an odd. So it's definitely not it. So let's apply the rules that are in red. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we have to change it to this form, where it's tan power 6x secant squared power the rest, which in this case 2 power 2, because 2 power 2 is 4, and then y minus 1. So 2 minus 1 times secant squared. Okay? Now we need to change secant squared into 1 plus tan squared. Okay. Times secant squared. 2 minus 1 is 1, so you can leave it empty here. And tan power 6. Okay. So we need now to change u to replace tan by u. Okay, so du will equal secant squared, and dx will equal 1 over secant squared. This way we can cancel this secant squared. So let's rewrite it here. U power 6 times 1 plus u squared times secant squared times 1 over secant squared. We can cancel, and we'll have u power 6 times 1 plus u squared. Multiply, it's going to be u power 6. U power 6 times u power 2, we have to add the powers. It's going to be 8. Okay, now integrate. It's going to be u power 7 over 7 plus u power 9 over 9. And this will be, replace u, which we chose to be tan power 7 over 7 plus tan power 9 over 9 plus c. And that's it. All right, so the next question. We apply the rules, just the same. So first we analyze the powers. Here both of them are odd. So it must be the second one, since this is odd and this can be anything. So let's apply the rules, but before we continue, forgot to add times tan x. This is in the rule, okay? So let's apply it. So first we change the form of tan. So it's going to be tan squared power the rest, which is 3. We take 1 out of this, okay, because we want to multiply by tan. So it's going to be tan power 2 times tan. Then continue normal. Okay, so apply the rule for secant. It's going to be secant n minus 1, meaning it's going to be secant power 6 times secant. Okay, rewrite this. It's going to be tan squared power 2 times secant power 6 secant times tan. Okay, now the rule says we have to change tan squared. So tan squared is going to be secant squared minus 1 squared times secant power 6 times secant times tan. Now we take u as, so u is equal to secant x, so u should be taken as secant x here. So du will be secant times tan, so dx will be the opposite, 1 over secant times tan. So let's rewrite this. It's going to be u squared minus 1 squared times u power 6 times secant times tan, then times dx, which is 1 over secant times tan. Basically, we're going to cancel this with these. Okay. Now, we expand. So u squared plus minus 1 is going to be a squared, which is u power 4, minus 2ab, so 2 times u squared times 1, then plus b squared, which is 1. Great. Now multiply by u power 6. It's going to be, add the powers since it's multiplication. So u power 10 minus 2 u squared is u8, u power 8, then plus u power 6. Okay, now all left is integration. So u power 10 is going to be u power 11 over 11 minus 2u power 9 over 9 plus u power 7 over 7. So let's rewrite this and change u. So we chose u to be secant, right? Or tan. Yeah, secant. So it's going to be secant power. I'm going to change from least to greatest power. So secant power 7 over 7 minus 2 secant power 9 over 9. And then finally plus secant power 11 over 11 plus c. And that's it. All right, next question here. Tan power 3. So the first thing I'll do is I'll simplify it. Tan squared times tan. And then I'll change tan squared to secant squared minus 1. Then times tan. And now I will take u as secant. Because if I take it as tan, I cannot cancel. So du will be secant times tan. So dx will be 1 over secant times tan. So let's replace here. It's going to be u squared minus 1 times tan times 1 over secant times tan. So cancel the tan here. 1 over secant will stay. And also we know that we changed secant to u, right? So we can replace secant to be u. So it's going to be u squared minus 1 over u. and then we can split it into two. Okay, so without the brackets here, because you cannot see it. So it's going to be u squared over u minus 1 over u. So this will be u minus 1 over u. So now we integrate, u will be u squared over 2, while 1 over u will be ln u. Now replace u, it's going to be, we chose u to be secant, so secant squared over 2 minus ln secant plus c. This is your answer. Alright, so next question, secant cubed. So the first thing I'll do is I'll split it, secant squared times secant. Now if we choose this to be changed to 1 plus tan squared, later it's going to be really tough when we choose u. Because if you choose u to be secant or tan, it's going to keep getting tougher and tougher. So what I'll do is I'll use integration by parts. We have two parts here. I'll choose u to be secant squared and v prime to be secant. We want to find u prime, however, we don't know the derivative of secant squared. So what I'll do is I'll switch and check if it's better. So we can find the derivative of secant, which is secant times tan. As for the integration of secant squared, we know that tan is equal to secant squared. So this would work. Now, perform the formula, which says secant times secant squared here, uv prime, which is secant cubed, equal to uv, which is secant times tan, minus the integration of secant times tan, which is u prime times v, which will be tan squared times secant. Alright, now we're going to distribute. Oh, actually, we have to simplify this even further. So let's simplify this. It's going to be tan squared times secant. We can change tan squared to secant squared minus 1 times secant. Then distribute the secant here. It's going to be secant cubed minus secant. Now take this back and replace it back here. Okay. So we're going to take this right here and let's rewrite the equation. Secant cubed. Okay. Now we can distribute this negative to both. Okay. So secant times tan minus secant cubed plus integration of secant. Great. Now you have to open your eyes. On the right, we have negative secant cubed, and on the left, we also have secant cubed. Since it's negative, it's going to be positive when it goes to the left. So there will be 2 integration of secant cubed equal to secant times tan plus the integration of secant. Alright, so let's perform the integration of secant. In order to do that, we have to check the PowerPoint, which is in the description again. Okay, so we have secant, integration of secant is ln secant x plus tan x plus c. So let's change it here, secant times tan plus ln secant x times tan. Okay, so now we have 2 integration of secant cubed, but the question wants only secant cubed. So what we're going to do is we're going to move 2 here and divide the whole thing by 2. We're going to divide 2 by both sides, okay? Okay, so this will be your answer. Secant times tan plus ln secant x. This is plus, okay? So secant plus tan x over 2 plus c. Alright, so last question. You just have to apply the formula here. We have sine A and cosine B. So it's in the slides here, probably in the next slide, right here. So sine A and cosine B, just apply the formula. Okay. Don't forget this is the integral of the whole thing. So basically integral of half sine A minus B. So we have A here b here. So a minus b will be -1. So we can say negative sine x plus sine a plus b, which is 9x. 9x. Okay. So now take the half outside. We need to find it without this. Okay. So take the half outside. Negative sine x plus sine. Okay. Now split the signs from each other. Okay. So what we're gonna do is take half integration of. We can take the negative outside. Sine plus the integration of half sine 9x. Okay, now integrate. So negative half integration of sine is negative cosine, since cosine is negative sine. So it's going to be positive cosine plus half integration of sine is negative sine, negative cosine. So it's going to be minus cosine 9x. And remember, divide what's inside. So divide 9. So the final answer will be cosine over 2 minus 2 times 9, which is 18, cosine 9x over 18 plus c. And that's it.